Alright guys, you're welcome back to day 3 of our HTML and CSS bootcamp. Today we are going to be wrapping up with the project we started 2 days ago. Now, that project is what we see on my screen currently as the travel agency landing page. And let me show you what we've been able to do so far. Just a second. I'll just come to my HTML page and open up with live server. Now take a moment to take a look at what we have been able to achieve so far with our HTML and CSS landing page. Okay, but today we are going to be getting it up to this extent, looking really nice and smooth. To complete our project, now let's do this together. First, I believe we need to make an adjustment to our button, because currently we can see the play button and the play text are not on the same line, which is very different from what we have here. So we're going to be making adjustments to that right about now. And to fix that, here's how to do it. First, I need to take a look at the structure of my HTML. Now, looking at it, it seems all perfectly fine. But there is a catch. From our design, as we can see here, whenever you click on this, it serves as a link. And in our class 2 days earlier, I mentioned that everything in HTML was a tag. And if you want to create link, you need a tag. And that tag is very different from an image tag. In fact, to create a link in HTML, what you actually need is an anchor tag. And we already have that. So we need to restructure our HTML in order to have the perfect style. And all we need to do is place this image tag. I'm just going to take this image tag. I'll take it out and I'll be placing it right inside the anchor tag. I'm placing it right here. Now we shouldn't notice so much difference. Let me scroll. Now let's take a look at the result. And we're not going to notice so much different, but structuring our code in this way makes it easier for us to style. Now I can easily make sure that the image, that's the play button, and the text play demo are actually on the same line. So let's do that. Let's take a look at what we have currently. Again, not so much difference. But here's where the trick comes in. I can specifically target this image and try to make sure it comes in the same line as the play demo text. And I can do that in a single line. To specifically target the image I have here, here's how I do it. I'll come to my CSS, and first I'll write an anchor tag. Now this is a different way of targeting, and I know that yes, I can pick out the image tag directly by calling the class, but I want to do it differently, so we'll learn a lot as well. So I'll target this anchor tag and pick this image tag inside of it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll say A, and I'll write space, write img. Now this means pick the image tag that you see inside of an anchor tag. Now once you write your selectors like this, leaving the space in between, what that means is you're trying to pick a tag here found inside of the one you place here. So in this case, I'm saying select the image tag you find inside of an anchor tag. And let's take a look at what that might mean. And yes, that simply means this. So again, now I'm going to have another property called vertical alignment. So vertical align helps me try to position the image on the same line as the text. Now, it might not be exactly on the same line, but it's going to give us something close at least, where we can now begin to adjust and position it properly. So vertical align, it'll have a value of middle. And again, let's take a look. It's looking good. Like I said, it tries to position it at the center, but then again, there's a bit of an offset. And we can take care of that offset by adding margin at the top of that image. To add margin at the top, still in the same image, I'll simply add a margin, and I'll say margin top. And margin top, again, you can play around with these values. I'm just going to say 10 pixels. Let's see what 10 pixels gives us. Nah, 10 pixels is a little too small. Let's make that 20. 20 should be perfect. Say 25. See? Great. 25 looks perfect. Now it's time for us to add the other part, the other image. Now, not to worry, we'll still come back to this part and make sure our style looks perfectly fine. But for now, let us add the image and continue with the stylings. Now, I already have the image in the file I left in the comment section. Let me show you the image. It's called image.png. Now, this is the image we would be using. Same image as we have in our design, as you can see. It's the exact same image as we have in our designs. So we're going to be making use of this image in our project. Again, in our previous live session, we divided the hero section. Remember, I called this the hero section? We divided the hero section into two parts. The first part having all these texts, which we have successfully placed and did a little bit of styling with. And the second section, this part having just the image. Now let's take a look at our division in HTML as well. Now in our HTML code, we also effected that division, and it's looking like this for the left division. And as you can see here as well, we also have the right division. Now on the right division is where we have the image. So I'm going to be placing that image in the right division. Now to place the image, as you could guess already, we would need an image tag. And it's as simple as writing img. I love allowing Visual Studio Code help me with a suggestion. It makes work easier. And in the src, which stands for short source, I'll place the path to the image. And as you could guess, it's image.png. Now let's take a look at what we've been able to do so far. Great. The image shows up, but it's underneath the previous sections we've created. Now we do not want it appearing like this. Rather, we want them appearing on the same line, equally on the same line. That's exactly where our divisions come in. If you look at the structure we had earlier, we have a section and we have a right division and also a left division. Now, we can actually make sure that we split the divisions into left and right. And as you can guess, we have done this earlier on, and we can repeat the same trick by calling the display property on section. Now, if I go back to my style, I had earlier styled section, there we have it. And right in the section tag, if I call the display property display, and I set its value to flex, which gives us room to play around with our positions. Let's see the result that that gives us already. Here we go. Looking really nice. It's no longer appearing at the bottom and now appearing right beside, because we were able to successfully call the display property and set it to flex. Again, if you have any questions, please leave your questions down in the comment section and we will do well to get back to you with responses. We're almost getting there. And as you can see, we still need to position our elements properly. It's still not looking at the center. Now, you might want to guess, because I said earlier that you can move your elements around by specifying the margin properties or the padding property. Now, while that is true, and even if you specify margin, you would not have made a mistake, I would want to do it automatically. Now, because I have already specified the display property in my section, remember that this hero section, this section is what I call the hero section, is what houses every element you currently see. By every element, I mean all the text ranging from here and down to the image. As you can see, the section houses that. And I already set the display property of my section to flex, which means now I have total control over my sections. So instead of setting margins and paddings, what I'll choose to do is to set my justification of content and alignment of content. Now, here is what I'll do. I'll say justify content center. Now I'll show you the effect and let's take a look. Now, justify content center helps me try to position it horizontally at the center. And now one more property, align items center. Take a look. Now it's looking really nice, except the image we have at the right hand side is bigger than we expect, and that's very easy to take care of. We can take care of the image simply by specifying the width property. Again, let's do that together. To do that, I'll back in my CSS. I'll go right here just to take a glance at the structure. Now, the image is right inside the div with a class name right div. So here's how I'm going to style. I'll call the class right div in the exact same way I had written the name, and I'm going to select the image tag right inside it. And now I can specify the width property. Let me give it a width of say 300 pixels. Let's just take a look at the size. Wow, it actually appears, but 300 pixels is very small. And notice how we automatically centered all the content in our hero section without having to do so much work in terms of margins and paddings. So now let's make adjustments to the size of the image. Now I believe 600 pixels should do just fine. Great. Now I believe 600 pixels is just the perfect size. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions down in the comment section and we will be making sure to attend to them. Okay? Now, we still have work to do, but we're coming to the end. It's beginning to take shape, it's beginning to look like what we have here. First, we have this text saying best destinations around the world, and we need to make it look exactly like this. We need to make it look nice, and we need to change its color. To do that, we need to take a look at our HTML. Now, the exact text the exact tag that has the text best destinations in the world is the H3 tag. Now, scrolling through our code, there's no other occurrence of the tag H3. So it's safe to say using the H3 as a selector in my CSS is safe. So now I'm going to do just that. I'm going to select the H3, thereby targeting the text best destinations in the world. And now the first thing I would want to do is change its font weight. Let me make it 800, and let's see, shouldn't have so much effect. Okay, good, looks great. 800 works perfect. And now it's time to change the font color. Now I believe the color of the font is maroon, so to change the font color of the font, I just need to specify the property color. Now color should be maroon. Let's take a look. Looks good, but the maroon it's a lot lighter. So let's make that adjustment. And to make the adjustment, I can try to do that using the scale I have here. And this is great. Now I have a different color now. I don't know the name, but I believe it matches the exact color we are looking to generate. Now, that's how we're able to target the H3 element. Next up, we need to target the travel, enjoy, and live a new and full life. This time, having a navy blue color. But again, the text is bolder and larger than the H3. Looking at our current results, it's not too different. So we need to make this text bigger and larger. So aside from making a change to the font weight, we'll also need to make a change to the font size. To do that, back at our HTML, we need to look for the tag that has the text enjoy and live a new life, as you can see. And that tag is H1. And again, we need to be careful. We need to look through our code and see if we have any other occurrence of H1. And luckily, we do not. Now, if there were to be any other occurrence of the same tag, what that means is we'll need to be. I'll specify its colors. Now, the first thing I want to do again is to specify its font weight. And this time, I'll just make it 900. Font weight of 900. Let's take a look at what we have. Looking good. So now let's make a change to its size. So the font size, say 32 pixels. Let's see how big 32 pixels would be. It's big, but not as large as we would have wanted. So let's make it a lot bigger. So 50 pixels. I believe 50 pixels gives us a lot of resemblance to what we were looking for. But let's see what 55 pixels would look like. 55 should be ideal. Great. 55 pixels is just perfect. Now let's make a change to the color. As you can guess, this should be very easy. To make a change to the color, what we need to do is, back in the H1 tag, we need to specify the color property. Color property, and it's navy. Now let's see what this looks like now. Looking good, but I believe the color should be a lot darker. Let's make that adjustment. Again, my swatch. My swatch, this should be the color we are looking for. Perfect. It's not black, it's navy, but a really dark shade of navy. Now, one more thing. We also need to take a look at the color of the text at the bottom. Now, that text is not black, it's gray in color. Something similar to the color we currently have for the travel, enjoy, and live a new full life. So I believe all we need to do is replicate the same colors for this. Now to do that, I'll go back to my code, and as you can see, I have one p tag and I do not have any other p tags at all in my codes. So I can safely select the p tag as a selector in my CSS. So right back, I'll come right here, selecting the p tag, and I want the text color. Now I'm going to be using the same colors I have here. So I'm going to be using the RGB format of entering colors, and I have one for red, one for green, and blue has the highest percentage of 41. Exactly. Now let's take a look at what we have. Looking perfect. Perfect. Now, a few more things to do. I believe we have been able to achieve the results, but we have a few more things to learn about. It's still looking really nice, but we can make a few more adjustments to make them look nicer. Now, there is no indication that I am currently on this particular element. Now, I would rather want that if I come on top of this element, the button that says find out more, I would want the background color to change, to give me a different color. Say the same color as the text we have here. Now to do that, we need what we refer to in CSS as pseudo selectors. Pseudo meaning false, meaning it's a selector that is there, it's present, but at the same time it's not there. Now let's take a look at how to add pseudo selectors. Now, right back in our CSS, I believe the exact code that we need to write to help us out with our background color was written in this particular class called find. Take a look. the find class holds the anchor tag. So we need to attach a pseudo selector to our find class. Now to do that, I can repeat the same find class, and this time attaching a pseudo selector by making a colon sign. And after the colon, I need to write hover, which means a selector that only appears whenever I hover. And to do that, I can now specify properties and values I want my find class to have whenever I hover. And I want a background color of the same RGB code as we had earlier, 1141. Great. Now let's take a look at the effect that this gives us. Now if you take a look at this, we shouldn't notice any difference, but then if I hover on this, notice how the background color changes and now matches with the text we have here. Interesting, isn't it? Good. Now I'm sure we can try out a little bit more. Now I'm going to give us a few seconds to try this out, and we'll also try to attend to your questions as you ask them. Okay? Again, you can also attach series selectors not just to your buttons here, but also to any elements that you choose. But in the case of in our own case here, we only think for the design, attaching pseudo selectors would be perfect for the buttons. That's why we have the buttons and the pseudo selectors matching only for the buttons. Now, one more thing we could do to our anchor tags, as you might have noticed for other websites, is that whenever you hover on certain elements, you have what we refer to as a tooltip. A tooltip is a dialog box that pops up whenever you hover on elements that tells you more about that element. Now currently we have no such dialog box on our find out more button, but I believe it'd be good design practice to add that tooltip to our find out more button. Now, to add that tooltip, here's what we need to do. Second, oops, great. Here's what we need to do. Now, to add a tooltip, all we need to do is go right back to our HTML and try to locate the find out more button. And right in the anchor tag as an attribute, we could add a title. Now I can give it any title I want, but I'm just going to say this title helps describe the functionality of this button. Great. Now let's take a look at what the change we have done so far would make. Now if I come and hover on top of this button now, looking at the tooltip, exactly the same text I had written earlier. It says this title helps describe the functionality of this button. Very easy. Very, very easy. Now I believe there might be questions that you'd want to ask as regards how we were able to develop this agency webpage from the top, and I'll encourage us to leave the questions right in the comment section. And just before we go, I'll take a brief run through of what we're able to do so far in trying to design this web page. Firstly, we're able to explain that in order to write HTML code, we would need to write it in a specified environment called the Visual Studio Code. Now, we chose the Visual Studio Code as the environment of choice for developing this because it's easy and lightweight. So of course, there are other code editors out there that you could try out, but for the sake of this tutorial, we were working with the Visual Studio Code editor. Now, having done that, we're able to download and install the Visual Studio Code editor by going to a platform called code.visualstudio.com/download and selecting our platform, our type of platform, be it Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. We'll definitely need to select, and our download begins simply by selecting. Now you can see my download already started. I'll just stop it because I already have Visual Studio Code downloaded and installed. Now, after the installation of the Visual Studio Code environment, we went ahead to try to understand what HTML actually was. And we said HTML is short for Hypertext Markup Language, which means that HTML helps us mark up our text. It adds more meaning to whatever text we will be giving it. And that's why for everything we put in HTML, we need a tag. Now that tag helps us mark up our text. Now if we do not use tags in our HTML, we are simply not writing HTML codes. Now that's why for every single thing we did in HTML, as you can see, for every single thing we added in our HTML, we always did using codes, using tags. You can see them. Div tags, the anchor tags, the image tags, and the likes. So the tags helps us mark up all the text, and that's where HTML gets its name from, Hypertext Markup Language. And we also went further to understand that HTML alone cannot provide us with a beautiful web page. It will interest you to note that simply by taking off the styling of our website, let me do that. This is where I linked it up. I'll take it off, I'll unlink it. Take a look at the results of the same beautiful website we currently had earlier. Take a look. Not so nice. So HTML alone cannot provide us the entire beauty of the website. But then, to get a beautiful website, we need to use HTML in conjunction with a style sheet called CSS. And CSS is short for Cascading Style Sheet. It's a set of instructions that helps us style our HTML documents. Now I'll just go right back and link the document properly. And as you can see, web page looking beautiful and as good as new. Now, we first of all dissected our designs into two major parts, the navigation part and the hero section. And we went to work on the navigation aspect. Taking a look at the design we have an image as well as navigation links. And in terms of structuring, we also structured our navigation into two aspects, the logo aspect and the navigation links aspect. And we went straight down to take note of that structure in our code. As you can see, we have the logo and we also have the navigation links. Notice how we were able to use a div to separate the logo from the rest of the navigation links. And that is because a div is a container. It is used to hold elements. It is used to group HTML elements. So we use the div in this case to group all of our navigation links. Again, having done that, it was going to be very easy for us to style. Noting that HTML is a block level programming language, which means all the elements is going to be stacked one on top of the other. To show you what I mean, I'll take out the style I added earlier. Okay, if I take out the display flex property, take a look at our results. You can see the logo is styled right above the navigation links, which is the default behavior of HTML. In order for us to get them to be on the same line, we need to make sure that HTML no longer behaves in the default way that it would behave by tampering with the display. And the default display for HTML is the block display. So we want to change that, and that's why we introduced our new display called a flex display. As you can see, we added the display flex. Now by adding that, you can see it makes it all on the same line. And we were also able to style the button here by adding borders and reducing the paddings you had earlier. I mentioned earlier that padding is the space you have inside an element. So the space between the border and the text is called a padding. For the space between the border and outside of the text is called a margin. We refer to that in CSS as the block model. Now, having styled that, we also came down here to the hero section, and we also grouped the hero section into two parts: the right div and the left div. Now on the left div, what we have are the texts, and on the right div, what we have is the image. Now again, the right div is properly placed, properly arranged, because by default HTML gives us the block level arrangement, and that's exactly what we have here. That's exactly what we have here. Now, looking at it in the right div, we begin to write our text that says best destinations around the world, and we also have the one that says travel, enjoy, and live a new and full life. And just underneath that, we have another text that says built